Well, hello and welcome to the Super Connector Show, where I'm delighted to be joined by David Simpson, who is the founder and owner of the England's Northeast.co.uk website and the Tangled Worm website as well. He's also a historian, Northeast historian, a writer, a journalist, and done all kinds of amazing things over the years as an actor and also a journalist and a drummer in a punk band as well. So we'll get into that at some point. So, David, how are you doing?
I'm great, thank you. Yeah, good to see you.
Yeah, no, it's really good to do this because I was looking before. We've definitely been connected online on LinkedIn at least for 10 years since 2016. Where's that time gone? And it's 10 years that I've been in business as well. So that coincides nicely. But I think we might have been connected or met before that, maybe a year or two before that as well.
Yeah, I think we did. Yeah.
And maybe Twitter. Maybe we were connected on Twitter because I used to be very active on Twitter. And
yeah.
I think that's maybe. But anyway, for whatever reason, we've sort of connected and been drawn to each other.
We're on Facebook as well.
Yeah. Yes, and we both share a strong interest and a pride in the northeast of England. But you are obviously very knowledgeable about this. So I was going to start with a big question with what is the Northeast? What do we mean by the Northeast?
Well, the Northeast, I think, in the strictest sense, is going to be Northumberland, Tyneside, Wearside, County Durham, and Teesside. So it's everything sort of from Yorkshire up to the Scottish borders. But there are there are variations on that. Sometimes North Yorkshire gets included in that as well. There are lots of cross connections into the Scottish borders. Obviously, that's not Northeast England, but there are, lots of different regions. There's a border region as well. I mean, recently done a book on York. I think there's quite a strong link between the Northeast history and York, certainly the earlier history. But yeah, I think essentially it's the Tees, the Tyne, County Durham, Northumberland.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, good definition. I know when people often talk about the North, but especially if they're not from the north of England, they'll talk about the north, but what they mean is Manchester. But if you look on a map, Manchester's south of where we are. It's,
I think I checked, I did some measurements, and I can't remember what they exactly were, but I measured from Berwick upon Tweed to Sheffield Cathedral, and I think it was then from Sheffield to Cathedral to, I think it was Covent Garden or Trafalgar Square or something like that, and they're the same distances.
Oh, well, okay.
So that sort of puts Sheffield right bang in the centre of the country, which is really interesting because that would be seen as the north. But you're right. It's the definitions are strange, aren't they?
Depends on who you're talking to, doesn't it?
Yes.
And,
yes.
So, but yeah, just generally speaking, so in the north you've got Yorkshire, you've got the northwest, and you've got the northeast. That's like the three sort of major areas of the north. But we're talking about, like you say, above Yorkshire. Yes. Below Scotland, and not the northwest. So
not the northwest.
Yes,
but of course there are strong links to Cumbria, Valley, for example. Is a really strong link there.
Yeah.
A lot of there are crossovers. But yeah, essentially you're right.
Have you? I'm sure you've probably read it or heard about it. There's a good book came out a few years ago all about Northumbria. Like the ancient kingdom of Northumbria, which was north of the Humber. And that ancient kingdom was everything north of the Humber all the way into Scotland and across into the north.
There's been one or two. Rollison and Nick Hyam's book. Yeah, there's one or two about Northumbria. And you're absolutely right. It's from at least the Humber. In fact, sometimes even further south into Lincolnshire, Northumbria extended, right the way up to Edinburgh.
Yeah,
that is Northumbria, and then across to the west, as far as places such as Whithorn on the Dumfriesshire coast, and possibly even as far as Ayrshire. So Northumbria, its extent was huge. I think it never got further south than the Mersey, but it did actually reach the Mersey at one point. So the Mersey estuary was at one point at the border of Northumbria.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, and of course in Yorkshire, the Yorkshire extends south of the Humber in, say, the Doncaster and Sheffield areas. And interestingly, just outside Sheffield, there is a a village on the suburbs of Sheffield called Dore, which is spelled Dore, and it was literally the doorway, like a mountain pass between the kingdoms of Mercia and Northumbria, which I find that absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, amazing. Oh, I didn't know that. Well, I love stuff like that. Well, I love history. Like I studied history at A level, and I still read a lot. And just, but I'm fascinated by how history still influences things to this day as well, like regional identity and why things have developed the way they have in terms of business and industry and culture and dialect, and which is why I love your website. Your website is amazing. Like England's Northeast.co.uk is the website.
Yes, England's Northeast.co.uk.
Yeah,
it's been running since about the 90s, possibly the mid 90s, certainly at least as early as 97. It's had a couple of name changes, so it's been around. It was around before Instagram and Facebook and Wikipedia and Twitter and that kind of thing. But it's been called England's Northeast since 2009.
Yeah. Well, look, it's such a rich website. There's so much content on there for anyone who's from the Northeast or not from the Northeast and wants to learn more about it. I would encourage everyone to take a look at it, just for their own interest, or if they're studying as well. You know, there's so much information on there. So, why did you start doing it? Why did you create it?
I don't know. I was quite interested in. I started getting interested in regional history and the local history. Well, really, when I was at school, because I was born in Durham, but I actually grew up in the south of the region near Stockton.
Yeah.
And there were a couple of things that sort of stick in my mind. We used to travel up to my grandparents. Both of my grandparents on both sides lived in Durham, in the Durham city area. So we would come through to Durham, we'd look around Durham. I'd hear the difference in the accent, which always really fascinated me, because it was only a short. I lived near Yarm. And the other thing that sticks in mind from my childhood is the Stockton and Darlington railway celebrations back in 1975, which was quite fascinating. You know, celebrating the original railway back in 1825 and the cavalcade at Shildon and that kind of thing. So those are a couple of things that stick in my mind that sort of triggered my interest. But somehow I was always interested in things like Vikings and Anglo-Saxons. And I remember when I was a strange kid. I remember I was about 15 maybe, getting on a train from Eaglescliff, where I lived, and going all the way up to Newcastle, because my dad worked for British Rail, so it was a free travel. And going into W.H. Smith's in Newcastle and buying an atlas of historical Britain, an historical atlas of Britain, and all I had was cash. And I just remember there was people queuing up behind, and I was like handing over coins one by one, and then travelled back with this huge book, reading it on the train back to near Stockton, where I lived. But I don't know. I got that sort of interest, and always fascinated by things like the Vikings and the Anglo-Saxons and the old kingdoms and the prehistory and that sort of thing. And then then I started to develop interest in sort of later periods as well.
Yeah. No, well, it's. I think you can't help it. Like if you're from this area, there's so much history and so much variance in the different towns and villages and cities across the region. So I'm always surprised by people who just stay in their local area and they never venture into the next town or city. And there's so like doesn't take long to get from one place to another, and it's such an exciting place. And I definitely see myself as a northeasterner rather than just being from one particular area.
I remember standing on the top of Durham. On that note, standing on the top of Durham Cathedral Tower, talking to somebody from Newcastle, and they were quite flabbergasted that they could see Tyneside from there, and that it was so close, and they almost felt uncomfortable with it. It's kind of that. I don't know what it is. I think that people do sort of stick to their own rivers, and an interesting observation is that in the northeast you have got the three main rivers. And then in Northumberland, you've got individual rivers as well. Whereas if you go into Yorkshire's like one massive floodplain, which then all the rivers feed the Humber, and then you've got the North Yorkshire moors, which sort of occupies a large part of the coast, and then the Yorkshire Wolds in East Yorkshire. And there's only the River Esk at Whitby that has that independence. So, for example, the Tees is an independent river. Some people say it's obviously half Yorkshire because it did face the Yorkshire bank. But all, the Ewer and Wensleydale and that kind of thing, the Swale, they all ultimately join the Humber. In fact, if you go down to Stoke-on-Trent and into Nottingham, the Trent is feeding the Humber as well. It's huge. So that sort of river catchment area, it stretches really deeply into the Midlands. And of course, I mentioned the North Yorkshire moors, and then you've got the Pennines and the Cheviots, and they all sort of enclose the northeast really as well. And except for the Darlington area where it merges with the Vale of York and the Vale of Mowbray, it is kind of self-contained really. So I think that's part of the reason that you've got these strong individual identities, almost tribal identities, which is interesting.
I hadn't thought about that. So I studied geography as well at university, so I'm interested in all of this sort of stuff about how the physical geography can impact people's movement and how populations develop. So I've never heard anyone describe it like that, but I think it's
well, another thing is if you look at the collieries, the coal field, and the wagon ways and the wagon ways that link to the two rivers. So you kind of got this sort of area of development around the Tyne. So I think that northwest Durham, like say the Stanley area in particular, has a much stronger allegiance to Tyneside. You'll find a lot of Newcastle. I mean, you'll get Newcastle United supporters across the whole of County Durham, even though sort of Sunderland is historically a County Durham town. But certainly in that area, there's a very strong allegiance. I mean, you get Newcastle United supporters in Bishop Auckland and all over. Sunderland is maybe more of an allegiance down the East Durham coast. And I think I don't know. And if you look at the movements, I do a bit of family history as well, and that gives you some fascinating insights into the way people move around. And Teesside's a bit different because it lies outside the coalfield, so you don't quite have that that mining influence on the dialect. So although they had the shipbuilding and all the industries associated with that, the engineering and so on on Teesside, it wasn't in the coalfield. Hartlepool wasn't within the coalfield. That was a coal port. And I think that gives it a slightly different identity. But there are features, for example, in Middlesbrough, they say Howie rather than Howe. You do hear that a lot. So it's something that, that there are all sorts of different variations across the region.
Love it. Yeah, no, that's really good because, like you say, the physical geography, but also the trade routes and the natural resources in an area have obviously influenced where people locate themselves and where settlements develop over time. So if you're from a local area and the trade routes are going in one direction, you're going to have stronger connections there to somewhere else where you'd have no trade routes, or even if you're a rival, a competitor for resources and industry.
Yes.
So and I think that's still having an impact to this day, isn't it?
On the local identity.
Local identity.
Yes, I think so. Yeah. I mean, obviously, the obvious one is the Newcastle-Sunderland rivalry, which is
the football rivalry, but also industrial rivalry as well.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, there were distinctions, I think, in the middle, certainly before the 1850s, probably going back to the late 18th century. The collier ships from the time were called Geordies. They were known as Geordies. And the ones from the Weir, for some reason, we're not quite sure why, were called Jamies.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It possibly has something to do with the Jacobite Rebellion. I don't know, but it's an interesting fact. But yeah, there was a bit of a rivalry between shipbuilding centres as well. The term Mackham, I think, possibly goes back a lot further than we actually realise, because there's references. There's a chap called William Fordyce, who in his History of Durham, in his section on Sunderland, he says that, and he's writing in 1854, and he says at the end of the last century, so he's going back to the 18th century, he said that there was a jibe about Wearside where it was said that they could either make ships, and obviously Mackham comes from the word make in some way or another, or they could build ships. And what the distinction was, is it was like bargaining. If you wanted a ship built on, because you're talking about wooden sailing ships, if you wanted a ship built on the sly at a cheap bargain price with no guarantee that they were going to be quality, then that's essentially making a ship. But if you wanted one properly built, it would be built. And I think that's probably somehow or other links in with the term Mackham. And it almost certainly originated on Tyneside, because it's a bit of a kind of a put down. It's saying, oh, they're building ships on the cheap. Can you see what I'm saying? Because there would have been intense rivalry between the shipbuilders. Because I think Daniel Defoe, as in Robinson Crusoe and Moll Flanders, he obviously spent a lot of time on Tyneside. He lived in Gateshead.
He lived on the Gateshead side of the Tyne, didn't he, for a little while?
That's right, and there's a plaque there, isn't there? Yeah. And he said, when he observed, they build ships here to perfection. He's talking about the Tyne. So there was a lot of pride, and there would have been rivalry as well, because they were competing. It was like a competitive business. So
yeah. Wow, interesting.
And we won't go, you can go into Civil War as well.
Oh no. Well, so what are you? I know you grew up in. You were born in Durham, is that right?
I was born in Durham.
And you grew, as a child, you were in Chesley Street.
Yeah, I don't remember it. I was like, it's on my birth certificate. I have Chesley Street Railway Station on my birth certificate, because my dad, who worked for British Rail, I think he was working at Greensfield at Gateshead, which is the engine, the railway works there. And they got a British Rail house, which was the railway station house on the railway platform at Chesley Street. So that's where I spent the first few months of my life. I don't remember it, but I was born in Durham City, on the outskirts of Durham City.
Yeah, that's like the Stevensons, they're in Wylam, growing up and seeing the.
Oh yes, yeah.
Influenced by the horse or pony or whatever pulling the carts, but on the early sort of bridle path, and the
little cottage there, isn't there? Yeah.
So, and thinking, there must be a better way, and then he got into the railway industry, and amazing inventor and industrialist. So yes, maybe subconsciously that's influenced your love of the railways, obviously, and your dad's and interest in industry in the wider region. But I was looking at you. It's really interesting. I think that you're born in Durham, grew up spent time in Chesley Street, then you moved to Stockton, then you were educated in Durham sixth form, Northumbria Uni, and then you've worked all over the region, like Darlington, Gateshead, and Durham. Yeah, and a bit of time in Sunderland as well. So you the whole of the region. You have
several jobs in the Sunderland area. I worked in Darlington for the Northern Echo for 15 years. I worked in the office right next to St James's Park at one stage, which was quite nice, because it was a great social life after work, on a Friday evening, because it was right in the centre of the city. Where else have I worked? Yeah, Sunderland a few times. Gateshead, you mentioned, that was quite a while ago. The Garden Festival. Yeah. My first job was in a railway station, and then my first job was as a miner at Beamish Museum. That was the very first job I had, was part-time at Beamish Museum. It was miner and then the railway station. So that was sort of a history related as well. Can't get away from those railway stations.
No, well, they're everywhere, aren't they? So it's it's great. I mean, it's a obviously. Well, do you think of yourself as a Mackham or a Geordie?
I don't think of myself as either of those. I'm from Durham, really. I think it's a difficult. I mean, if you asked me if you said what's your football team, I would very happily say I'm a Mackham, because I do support Sunderland. But I'm not really. I think possibly partly to do with when I was brought up. My dad never mentioned Newcastle. It was not one of these. Oh, we hate them and all that kind of thing. I never got that, and partly obviously because I was growing up amongst Borough fans as well, and I never really felt any. I mean, the first match I actually went to was I can't remember when it was, but it was at Middlesbrough, and it was like a Willie Madron who used to play. It was like a testimonial for him. Okay. And then the second match I ever went to again was at Ayresome Park, and that was with my dad, and we were both supporting Sunderland. Right. We were in the Middlesbrough end with our next door neighbour, and I've only been to St James's Park once, and that was when I was at college, with some friends, and I do remember standing in the queue outside St James's Park with my friends who were like mature students, proper Geordies from like Fenham and Arthur's Hill and places like that. And there was a guy in front of me, very animated, Sunderland this and the Sunderland and the Mackems this and the Mackems that and the Mackem. And my two mates that were with me, they turned around and looked at me and they went, "He's a Mackem." And the guy said, "Oh, no offence, mate, no offence. You're really nice." And then I sort of stand, because this is in the old Gallagher end, standing in the Gallagher end with these two guys. And every now and again they go, "He's a Mackem." And I'm just like, "Oh, please shut up." But it was, I enjoyed it. And I don't feel any, I'd like to see all the North. I'm really disappointed that Middlesbrough didn't get, promoted. I like to see all three. I think if you look at the big successful football teams in this country, they all have huge rivals. Man United and Liverpool, Man City and Man United. I know those are huge populous regions when you compare it to the North East, and all the London rivalry. And I think a key factor is, and I know sometimes the defeat, you can get defeated by being beaten by your local rivals, but I think rivalry is important for success. And I think that's why I always like to see, obviously I've got a preference for my own particular team. I'd like to see all three North East teams. And I'm not going to get into this Middlesbrough isn't the North East, because it's Yorkshire as well.
Yeah.
But its history is so tied to the North East region. And obviously it's got its own identity. So that annoys me when people, want to see the other teams relegated, and I understand why, but I just think it's a bigger picture.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's a strength and a weakness to it, because I think this stuff does matter locally. Like if you look hyper locally, it's really that pride in your local area and your village or your town or your city. That is a really good thing. But as a bigger picture. If we're talking nationally or internationally, it's potentially, personally, I think it's potentially held the North East back, that inter-regional rivalry, where it doesn't come across as a joined up region necessarily outside of the area.
It's a really interesting point, and I think if you compare it to Yorkshire's a very strong brand. It's a single name, it's an entity, it's a name, it's a brand. Northeast is a little bit vague, and I think we were having a chat before we started podcasting, and you mentioned like you go to Scotland and Northeast, they're talking about Inverness.
It depends where you are, yeah.
Yeah,
Scotland is in London Northeast.
Yeah, I think you said in London that there's similarly. So it's a little bit, because I called it England's Northeast because it was available. That's because it was. I actually have the domain England's North, so I could actually extend it in the future. But England's Northeast. I don't know. It's just specific because it's not the Northeast in the United States. It's Northeast England, and I think the Northwest. I think the reason that brand is strong in its own way, although obviously there's a lot, because there's so many cities and huge towns there, that sort of more intense rivalry is not so significant. It doesn't hold it back. Because Liverpool, it's huge, and it's got. I know we're not just talking about football. We're talking about the economy and that kind of thing. You've got the two football teams, but you've got Blackburn and Preston and Burnley and Bolton. There's so many towns and cities there, so close together. And I think that's and it is the most populous region in the north as well, which is huge. It's bigger than several European countries. So yeah, I think it's it's an interesting question, interesting conundrum, isn't it? Why does the Northeast sometimes feel like it's held back a little bit?
Yeah. Well, so when was this? 10 years ago? Yeah, 10 years ago, because I've had my own business for 10 years. I spent a bit of time working for a government organisation called Tech North, and that was all about. It was set up to promote the whole of the north of England as a great place to start and grow a tech business. So it was Liverpool, Manchester, Leeds, Sheffield, Hull, Sunderland, Newcastle. That was they were the cities, and it was loosely connected to the Northern Powerhouse connection. Do you remember that? There was
yes, I do. Yeah,
there was a George Osborne.
How did you find that? Did from a northeast point of view?
So why I was drawn to it, because previous to that, I'd spent about 15 years helping people start and grow businesses in jobs where I was paid to to do that across the UK, but I was always very like focused on the Northeast personally and doing a lot of voluntary work in my spare time and just doing anything I could to try and like champion the Northeast and an interest in local history and regional identity and stuff like that. So when the opportunity came up to join this team, and the team was going to be made up of people from across the north, and I was like, well, we need a Northeast representative in this team, so I'm going to go for this. So my role there was community engagement and partnerships manager for the whole of the North, right? And a brilliant job, like loved it, so happy that I got it, right? But I had to kind of not fight for it, but I had to really like prove my worth and prove my like understanding of the North and why I thought this is such a good thing. But I remember part of the recruitment process, there was like a selection board or some advisors who were deciding who should be in this team. And I remember this guy who I'd known for a while messaged me privately and said, "Why? How are you going to cope with going to Manchester and being met with a bunch of angry Mancs who don't want a Geordie there?" And I was just like, well, all right, okay, well. And then I had to explain why I thought I would be fine in that situation. And but it was interesting how even back then there was a feeling that Geordie shouldn't be in Manchester or that. So anyway, great job. But people hated the phrase Northern Powerhouse, right? Because they saw it as a patronising imposed on the North by the London lot,
right.
But they love the idea behind it of more devolution and autonomy and decision making power. So, but literally everywhere I went, people would say we hate the Northern Powerhouse, but we love the idea of what Tech North and what you're trying to do and the team.
Yeah.
But a big part of it was about trying to encourage more collaboration within cities and between cities to shine a light on all the great stuff happening across the north of England, but also to be respectful of the unique differences between the different areas and the strengths and the weakness of the areas. But even back then, you could see that Manchester was starting to become like the London of the North, which I think that they have now. And
it's got huge confidence and swagger about it, hasn't it?
Yeah, Manchester. The Mancunian swagger is definitely a thing. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, you think about
it's just as an aside. One of the I was talking to a guy the other day who's a young lad that I know, and he's a Manchester City supporter. He's from Manchester, to be fair, lives in the northeast. And I said to him, "I'm like, we out celebrating then last night. This is after the cup," and he said, "Nah." I said, "You want to celebrate winning the FA Cup?" And he said, literally said, "It's just the FA Cup."
Oh, right. They're just used to it.
Many times. I can't remember how many times they won it, and I thought that's sad because this was the the premier competition, the coveted competition that people wanted to win. And I think that's a real sad thing, really.
Well, it'd be people get complacent when they've had lots of success, but any Northeast club would be. Well, we've seen it, haven't we? Any cup win in the Northeast is a major deal compared to the Northwest, where they maybe take it for granted that they and that expectancy that they're going to be successful. That Mancunian swagger or the Liverpool confidence that we got there. They've won so much.
There were so many connections. I mean, similarities between the regions. I mean, Manchester City's football stadium is built on the site of a colliery, isn't it? Just like the Stadium of Light.
I didn't know that.
I think that's correct. And obviously Liverpool, the Port. I mean, there is a difference, I suppose, because Liverpool was more westerly oriented, and towards the Americas and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously Newcastle, the European trade, and the London trade, and so on. Same as Sunderland. But there are so many connections. But I mean, obviously the population is bigger in the northwest. But I think that I think we do get forgotten about sometimes. I think we're often an afterthought in the northeast.
Oh no, it frustrates me regularly where you see government reports or some other think tank or whatever where it talks about the north, and then they're only talking about the northwest and Yorkshire. And it's like, how can you come? You've just completely ignored the northeast region. So So even in that role that I was doing for Tech North, I regularly felt like I had to say, don't forget the Northeast, don't forget Teesside, don't forget like Sunderland, don't forget Newcastle, and okay, we'll include that. But you needed someone to be championing the North regularly.
But you've got the downside, I think, which you touched on earlier on, is because you've got that the rivalry within the region, between the different regions. I mean, we've got this, so where in recent times, Tees Valley has become a region. It's described itself as a region on a par with the Northeast, which is interesting. And obviously we've got the Northeast Mayor, we've got Kim McGuinness, covering the Durham up to County Durham, right from Barnard Castle right way up to Berwick, I think it is. But yeah, you've still got that sort of that rivalry between the different rivers and the different counties, which is quite deep rooted. And I think sometimes that can be a disadvantage when you're competing with regions like the Northwest, where there are rivalries between the cities, but they do seem to have a stronger front.
Yeah. Well, it was.
You know better than me on that.
I'm only hearing from secondhand, but definitely back then, I was asking questions about this, like why is Northwest doing so well, and even they have the Greater Manchester Combined Authority, which Liverpool's part of Greater Manchester, right? But it was explained to me that why Manchester's done so well, or one of the reasons, the leadership at the time, the leaders of the Greater Manchester Authority, even though it was a Labour led authority, they were totally fine with getting involved with the Conservative government. So even though it was Northern Powers was a Conservative thing, the leadership at Greater Manchester could see the benefit of getting behind this thing.
Yes.
And they would, it was described to me, they had the arguments behind closed doors. And like you say, they would show a united front as Greater Manchester. They might have that arguments or disagreements privately, but publicly it was a united front. And the benefit from that, whereas the Northeast, you would have the 7 Northeast, not including the Teesside area, you'd have the north of the Northeast, 7 councils would argue between themselves and not have a joined up approach, which made it difficult for London and the central government to engage with them. And then you talked about devolution there. When Teesside was first, you've Greater Manchester and then Teesside and other areas. But when the option of devolution first came about, the 7 councils, only the three of them said they wanted it, and 4 of them said they didn't. So you had Newcastle, North Tyneside, Northumberland went for it, and then Gateshead, Sunderland, South Tyneside, Durham said no.
That's interesting, because what you've essentially said is, historically, the North Tyneside, Newcastle, Northumberland, and I know Newcastle, it's here and there, is Northumberland, isn't it? And Gateshead's South Tyneside, Durham is County Durham, which is interesting. So that's quite a deep-rooted. And I know some people might take me up on this. Well, Newcastle was a county in its own right. It was, but obviously culturally, it was sort of interconnected with Northumberland, and even part of Newcastle was within Northumberland. But
but we've got the Northeast Combined Authority now. So the 7 councils are working together, like you say, being led by Kim McGuinness, and I do think she's doing a very good job.
I think she's doing a good job. Yeah,
but there's still an issue there about how we present ourselves or promote ourselves nationally and internationally. Do you remember? I'm sure you do remember, but when you had One Northeast, the regional development agency.
Yes, I do. I remember it well. Yeah.
And they
campaigns, and when you go on trips to London and you'd be on the Underground, and you'd see these huge banners on the Underground with northeastern scenes. I can't remember specifically which ones there were. With really high quality photography. Yeah, I thought that was amazing.
TV ads as well, it was because the campaign was passionate people, passionate places.
I think it was a brilliant campaign. Yeah,
people still talk about that now, because it was. I thought it was good, but the only thing I thought was, well, passionate people, passionate places. You could get passionate people from anywhere. It's not not unique about the Northeast. Like, although we want to think it is, it's like
think that's true. Yeah.
But at least it was a united. It was a
Yes.
big campaign for the whole of the region. Spent lots of money, and it did definitely grab people's attention that it was
Did.
a national campaign. So people have been saying, people still regularly say, "Oh, we need something like passionate people, passionate places," and they've never come up with anything.
I haven't said that. I mean, if you try to think back before that era, there was a lot more negativity, and I think that there was a lot of confidence grew in the region from that. I mean, I don't know whether there's any sort of empirical evidence for it, but I think that's the impression that I got. I mean, I mentioned that I worked at the Gateshead Garden Festival, and that sort of the Angel of the North sort of came from that as well, because of this, all the sculptures they had there and stuff, and the redevelopment of that area of Gateshead. I think we're just falling back on it a little bit too much, and I love to see that the images of the quayside and all the developments there, and you get them constantly regurgitated. No, that's not a very good way of saying it. Constantly recycled images of the new. Isn't this fantastic? Isn't this fantastic? It's almost like this. It's like a sort of a self-reassuring. We are actually really quite good. We are a great. I think there's lots of other places across the region. That there's lots of other things to be proud of. And I think there's still a little bit of a lack of imposter syndrome. Is that if that's a fair way of putting it when it comes to the Northeast? Still don't quite believe in themselves, and I think that's why sometimes we do fall back on the petty politics or the petty regional localism, within the region. I think it's just an educational thing. It's just sort of educating yourself and thinking about how you think about the region. Maybe. I mean, you might not agree with what I'm saying.
No, I do. Well, that one of the many reasons why I wanted to start my own business was to play a small role in trying to boost confidence and celebrate what was going on in the region. Obviously, I wanted to be self-employed. I wanted to do my own thing, but I could see that there was a need for more boosting and celebrating and promoting of regional businesses, which is what I've done for longer than 10 years, but definitely 10 years. My whole business has been about that. And definitely the events, like the small events and the big events, the 5-day Newcastle Startup Week Festival, which then was renamed UK Startup and Scale-Up Week. It was all about shining a light on why the region was such a great place to start and grow a business. But I think it's an ongoing thing. You have to just keep at it to educate and inspire local people, and national and international people.
That's right, and I think that's something. Obviously, my passion is the heritage side, so I'm interested in the business side, but I don't know so much about that. Obviously that's your area, but I think our heritage is sometimes I don't think we realise how significant it is. I mean, just something as simple as I do the Tangled Worm. I do books, I do prints. This is like the Border Reivers print, and just looking at the names, and I do sell these, and sometimes to the United States, and looking at the names on them. The Border Reivers, Armstrongs and Routledge and Ridley and Robson and Armstrong and Milburn, that kind of thing. It's just these names, Scott Elliott, these names sort of permeated into the coal field, so that you find them right the way across the region, right down to Teesside and beyond. But there are people all over the world, Australia, New Zealand, the Americas, Canada, United States, that have these surnames and have this link to the region and the borders. And I just think, and also if you can develop this identity that this region is, and I don't think it's stretching the truth to say it does have a particularly distinct identity that's quite different to most regions, other than perhaps the Southwest. It just has a really strong identity that's almost, it's got things in common with Scotland, and even Ireland, in its identity. It does make it a little bit different, and I think that's something that we are part of England. Obviously, there's no question about that. But there's also something quite distinct about this region, and I don't say that from a biased point of view. I have to say that from an historical point of view. There are all kinds of historical differences that make the region unique. I mean, you'll be familiar with the Dan Jackson book, the Northumbrians. That sort of touches on this distinction. And I think we've got to also be careful not to over egg it, you know. But I think at the same time, it is the cultural features that we have, the castles, Bamborough Castle and Lindisfarne, you know, Durham Cathedral, Hadrian's Wall. But the stories associated with them, I just think they're just fantastic. They're unique, and there's so many strong themes that the railway era, you know, the development of the railways and the industrial developments that took place here, which are quite extraordinary. It's an extraordinary story, and also, yeah, there were some great things happened in Manchester as well. Some extraordinary things happened there, but I just think we need to shout about it a little bit more. I think we've lost that a little bit recently. I think we have. I might be wrong, but the impression I get.
Yeah, well, people regularly say we've got to shout about it a bit more. I think there's a bit of it going on, but it's not like collective, or it's not a united story that's being told, like if everyone gets behind the same sort of stories and really believes in it. But it's like marketing, classic marketing. That's a lot of my background. It's like, yes, you can shout, but are people listening? Do you know what I mean? Like if you're saying the wrong things,
right,
it's not landing, then you've got to question: Are we doing the right things? Are we? Are the right people doing it as well? So
I'd like to see more collaboration and interconnection between the people that do have the expertise in marketing and the people that have the knowledge. Maybe people like myself that can see things that maybe that they don't see. It can be just little things, or it can be the bigger picture as well. You know, some of the things I've just mentioned there. But it's I don't know. I think we could have a much stronger international identity, and again, I'm talking from a cultural and heritage point of view, I should say.
Well, I'm hoping that Kim McGuinness and the Northeast Combine Authority is going to listen to this or watch this and hear you and get you involved in some as an advisor or a consultant and others as well, and any politicians as well or councillors. You know, it's this stuff's important. That's why I love history, because you can learn from the past, which can influence the present and the future. And I suppose the only thing I'd say is I think maybe as a region we hog on a bit too much about the past without talking about the current and the future. I'm not to say don't do it, but it's just like
I mean, when I developed the England's Northeast website, what I didn't want it to be was lots of old photographs of industry and nostalgia, because obviously if you're producing photographs of the shipbuilding on Tyneside, it's primarily going to be or old streets. It's primarily going to be of interest to people in those areas, in that particular area. I wanted to show. To use photographs of the region as it is today, so showing the beauty of the region, the beauty of the buildings. I mean, that's with brand new, with modern, up-to-date photographs. But say, hey, there's a story behind this. There's a great story behind this. You've got
some great photos in this book.
So that's the new your book. That came out last year, and I've just had a new one in that series on York, which is the same sort of format. So it is. That's what I wanted to say. Look, this is what we have. This beautiful valley, this beautiful castle has a story behind it. This beautiful streetscape in Newcastle has so many stories behind it. You know, and rather than this is when everyone wore a flat cap and. I mean, that's great. I'm not saying I'm not interested in that. That's fantastic. But I was thinking of it more of a point of view of promoting the history, but saying actually this is very much a part of our present, and it's something to be proud of. But it's not just nostalgia.
No.
Do you think? Am I making it clear what I'm saying?
And I think you've done a really good job of that with this book as well, because like I say, there's plenty of books about the history and old photos, black and white, and I mean. I love all that sort of stuff, and I've got plenty of those like that. And my dad, this book, I hope he's not watching this. So obviously, he does like watching my YouTube videos. So anyway, this is this is a Father's Day present for him that I've.
You know what? You could. I didn't sign it for you. You didn't ask me to
Oh
sign
no,
it.
it's all right. But he loves books and he loves local history, and
Yeah.
I'm sure he's going to really enjoy. And I'm secretly hoping that once he's finished it, he can let me have it as well. I'm thinking ahead. But I think the reason I mentioned that is I have heard a lot of the times in the past I've heard politicians or public figures where they talk about the past, but the knowledge of what's going on right now or what's on the horizon is pretty weak. And I've even heard this in Liverpool as well. I remember the mayor of Liverpool going to an event and he was good, but he was just talking about the glory days of the shipbuilding and he had nothing to say about Liverpool now.
Yeah,
like that's a shame that
because there's a lot to say about. I mean, yeah.
So that's the only thing I would say. Like, yes, definitely celebrate the past and
I did. Just as an aside, I did a few years ago. I worked for a company called My World, and we did these little books. And I did one called All About Geordie, which was quite popular. And one All About Newcastle, and we did a little follow-up. I did some research into Liverpool. It's fascinating. I've been to Liverpool a couple of times, and just the streetscape and the cityscape. I mean, it doesn't have the antiquity that Newcastle has.
Mm-hmm.
It's got some splendid buildings. There's a lot of great Georgian buildings, and obviously you've got the riverside buildings, like the Liver building, and and the Three Graces. So that's absolutely fabulous city. And I did one called All About Scouse, which was quite interesting to see some of the origins of that and the influences in it. Uh-huh. So I'm interested in the wider north, but obviously my main passion is in the northeast. But I think it's always important to go and get other perspectives and go and visit other regions. And I've travelled all over Britain. I mean, I've been to most of the cathedral cities in Britain and most counties, and I think it's important to get a different perspective. Obviously, when you travel abroad as well, it gives you insight into what makes your region unique and what makes it different and what makes it interesting and what it has in common with other places. Yeah. So, and I think sometimes the Northeast can be a little bit introspective and not really have you need something to compare it to, really. Just I don't know what you think about that, but
no, spot on. I think sometimes it's hard to put your finger on what makes the Northeast, but until you've moved out of the area. And then
it's an air of mystery, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's So if you go to Yorkshire, you go to the Northwest or any other parts of the UK, you realise how different they are to what we've got in the Northeast, and so I do think that's important, definitely.
I mean, it's only last year that I really explored Hull properly for the first time. Fascinating place, and again you can see differences and you can see similarities in the history, and you look at the the maritime aspect of it and the Trinity House. And there are I can see similarities with Newcastle. In fact, I found quite a few similarities when I was writing about York. I can see all sorts of connections to Newcastle and similar aspects, because obviously Newcastle has the city walls, obviously not quite as extensive as in York. And I could see connections with Durham and so on. So it is interesting to get other perspectives.
There's a good friend of mine called Tony Robinson, OBE, who's, I don't know if you know him, he's like
yes, I've seen. I know who you mean. Yes,
not the hat, and he's
not Blackadder guy. I know who you mean. Yes.
Yeah, he's an amazing guy. He's written a few books, but he's just a massive champion of micro businesses and small businesses everywhere.
Seen him on LinkedIn. Yes.
He used to work in corporate, so then he realized like that wasn't for him, and he wanted to be a champion of the little guy or little girl, so anyway, he's from Hull, and he once told me that sometimes people from Hull call themselves Northeasterners.
Yeah,
which I thought was like, because they like, if you look at northeast of Yorkshire, that's they're out on a limb. And they often don't see themselves as part of the wider Yorkshire.
Yeah,
they're like out on the edge
East
of
Riding.
the world, East Riding, and they have often stronger connections to Europe and the rest of the world because of the port and the international trade.
And I would guess probably historically there was a lot of connections, or people encountered people from the northeast coast would be encountering people from Hull, and in places on the East Anglian coast as well, and Lynn, Hink Lane, that kind of thing. So yeah.
Yeah, well, you would have had all the shipping.
Well, that's interesting. I didn't know that they sometimes regard themselves as
Northeasterners.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, really interesting.
Well, I do actually cover Hull on my website, but it's
okay.
sort of extended a little bit. Yeah, but it's still the main focus is the northeast.
Yeah, well, your website is brilliant, honestly. Like I've been enjoying having it, like reminding myself what was on it, and I've been you've got your YouTube channel, but your website's the main thing. I'll tell you something. I love your timeline that you've got on there. Your year by year.
Yeah, that's fun. Yeah, it's an interactive. You click on the actual graphic, and it'll take you to a particular time.
It's really, really good. And then, as well as your website, we mentioned it a couple of times. You've got your Tangled Worm website, which is more products. So tell us about that.
Yeah, the main focus of the Tangled Worm is that I've already shown you that Border Reivers map. They're quite big to fit onto the A2 maps, which are the main line of what I sell. For example, here's one on Viking, Northumbria, and then I've got one on. I don't know whether that's working, but I'm showing you on the screen.
I can see.
What is that one? Oh, that's a Civil War. And then Northeast Collieries, I think I have as well, that's one there, Northeast Collieries. They're sort of info maps, really. There's several others. The first one I did was rude and peculiar place names, which was really just to kick it off, really, just to get a bit of attention. I think that's the main line, and then I do the books, and I do the other thing. The other products tend to be print-on-demand products, but the maps are the prints, the main features. There's a little one here I do as well. I don't sell so many of these. That's a Geordie Fraser's. Talking of which, I have a YouTube feature called Geordie Fraser's, which is a bit of a pun, where I talk about dialect. You might want to have a look at that. I don't know what.
I was just watching it before.
I don't have the Geordie accent. I'm from Durham. Probably still got that slight Teesside interest, and my ex-wife her probably influenced my speech as well, because her mum was an elocutionist. From Northampton, so that's probably influenced me a bit. But I don't have a particularly strong accent, but I like doing accents. I like doing the impersonations, and I love the regional variety of accents that we have and the history behind them. You know that the Burr in Lancashire, or they say Burnley, Burnley, that kind of thing. And then you get that in the southwest as well, and that Northumbrian R, which is almost impossible to do. It's fantastic. I mean, that's part of our culture, and I think that we're losing them a little bit. I think they're starting to get a bit watered down, and they're not quite as strong as that. I do like listening to old dialect tapes from say the turn of from the early 20th century. They're fascinating.
Yeah, well, I'm subscribed to your YouTube channel. I was enjoying the Geordie dialect video before, and it's like I can hear different accents, but I'm not very good at doing them.
No,
like I can spot that it's a different, but I can't do a different accent. But I think. I don't know. You might think I've got a strong accent, but it depends who I'm talking. You've got
to. I mean, straight away, you've got a Tyneside accent.
Yeah, you know it's a Tyneside accent.
Gatesheadish or Wrighton.
Yeah,
I think, is that?
Yeah. So I grew up in Gateshead. Consider myself a Geordie, but and a northeasterner. But I live in Sunderland now, so I can.
I mean, even in Sunderland, people go, "Oh, that." It annoys me when they say, "Oh, Durham, it's like a Mackem accent, it's a Sunderland accent," and it's not. I mean, when I'm working in Durham, I can immediately tell if someone's from Sunderland. Right. And there's variations across Sunderland, just across the city. And I don't mean like Horton, Spring, and the other part, the external areas within the city or Washington. I mean, the actual Sunderland itself. There are lots of variations across that. I mean, Hendon, the different parts of the city have variations, and you sometimes get that H drop where they say Ardley. You see, I haven't quite got the sound of it, but they sometimes drop the H in Sunderland, which they don't tend to do in Tyneside.
No.
And obviously, it's that old cool and cool thing.
Yeah.
So you go to school or you go to school. That's the but even within the cities, there are lots of variations. I think there's a huge difference in County Durham between the South Durham accent and the North Durham accent, particularly Northwest Durham. I think that's. And Teesdale has a distinct accent, which it seems to have a lot in common with accents in Cumbria.
Right.
It's fascinating. It's not always obvious or clear why we get those variations, and I think that's quite fascinating. It's interesting to speculate.
Yeah, no, great. Well, your website goes into a lot of information. I encourage people to check that out again. But the tangled worm again, we'll just talk a bit more about that. You've talked about your posters, which look amazing. Like I love the look of them, and I'm a geographer. I love maps, and my dad loves
maps. Have always been my thing.
Take a closer look at your maps. I love books. I love history. I really like your other products as well. I like your hoodies that you've got.
Oh yeah.
I like your doormats, your coasters, your mugs, your stationery.
Yeah, those are print-on-demand goods, which I do through print-on-demand publishers. The difference between those and the maps and the books is that the maps and the books are published, obviously, in numbers. To print rather than through print on demand. But yeah, it's fun to do, and I need to add some new things as well. I'm gonna have a look at doing some new things. They do take time, obviously, and that's the thing. It's getting to balance in the time, and you never know what's going to sell and what isn't. It's like you can do your research, but until you actually put it out there, you just don't know, do you?
I don't know. But I think you've got a really good, strong range of products already. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this with you today, is because I think more people need to know that you're there and what you've already got. So anyone who's proud of being from the Northeast, or they've got family from the Northeast or friends from the Northeast, we've got Father's Day coming up as well, in June. So if anyone's stuck for a product or a lovely gift to give to their father, definitely check out your website. So it's tangledworm.com.
Yes, tangledworm.com. Tangledworm.com is the shop. englandsnortheast.co.uk is the history website. But they do both interlink. There are links to, across the two from one to the other. So,
just quickly, why is it called Tangled Worm?
I knew you were going to ask that. Do you know something? Obviously you've got the worm legends, like the Laidley worm up in Northumberland near Bamborough, and the Lambton worm, and then the Sockburn worm on the Tees. Near Darling, which has connections with Lewis Carroll's Jabberwocky poem, which is really interesting. And I think it's partly to do with that. It just sort of came to me, and I was just doodling it. Doodled it. I doodled the logo, which is like a tangled worm, like a little wyvern. And I just thought, tangled worm, I just like that. I think I do have a little description which says it's like unraveling the mystery, and it's got a bit of paganism in it and a bit of piety as well, because those worm stories often mix the paganism with the Christian symbolism as well. Not that I'm into religion or anything like that, but I just thought it was fascinating the interconnections there.
Yeah,
and worms and orms and sea monsters and wyverns and that kind of thing. It's just a bit of fun. I thought it was a fun name as well.
No, it's good, but it's.
The thing that did bother me, but initially when I set it up, I thought people are going to think this is a virus, but it hasn't had any issues with that. Because obviously you can get worms, can't you? But
yeah. No, it's great. I love your products, but I especially love your website as well. England's Northeast. I think you've done an amazing job with that, and it's such a rich content and information on there that I think more people should check out and know about. But I know you already get a lot of visitors anyway, don't you? It's
yeah. I mean, because I've been doing other things recently, and I had some eye surgery, and where that kind of thing. I haven't been doing as much content on it, but it usually ranks pretty well in search engines. I think people know that are familiar with that. You do have to keep adding content to keep you. I don't know whether it's still on page one. It's thereabouts. I'll have a look at that, but it does perform really well. I get visitors from all over the world. Get a lot of inquiries from people in the United States asking about this and that. Sometimes it's about family history. It's not necessarily things I can help with, but I can point them in the direction of, where to look, and what just to look at the pages that feature the area where their ancestors are from as well. So that's quite nice. And I don't know whether it's tempting people to come across, and I think there's a lot of negativity on social media about Britain at the moment, and what getting people to make that to buy a flight ticket and get themselves over here and explore the region, and even if it's just the country, but preferably our own region. is great, especially when they've got these connections and they're fascinated. And we're friendly enough, aren't we, to visitors? So
yeah, no, it's great. Great place to visit, but maybe even again, homegrown local people, get them to explore the region a bit more widely. Try different, go and visit a different village, town, or city that you've not been to before, because I think
absolutely,
it'll give you even more pride of where you're from if you just look a little bit further afield. No, it's great. It's great what you're doing, and well, this video and podcast, I'm going to turn this into a blog on our website.
fantastic.
So it'll have the video and the podcast, and it'll be a short little blog summary. But you can maybe embed it into your website as well, and it's
absolutely,
a bit of content for you.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Fresh content.
Yeah.
Awesome. Right, David.
I'll add it to both.
Yeah, let's do it. Right,
Fantastic.
David, love talking to you, and keep doing what you're doing. And yeah, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to reading this. I'm trying not to read it before me, Dad, because I don't want to give it like all. But I'm sort of flicking through it a little bit and reading bits of it. But I'm really.
That's my new book on York, by the way, which is it's out now as well. Got to get a plug in for that. Been a pleasure. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah, me too. All right. Okay, we'll leave it there. Thanks a lot, David.
Take care. Cheers. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.